Hello there, and welcome to Fallout Greener Pastures. We're over halfway done the first part of our story. If you haven't heard the previous episodes, I feel like you should start there, or you're going to be very confused. Without further ado, we bring you our feature presentation.
Agatha McCarver's log, June 2nd, 2296. They tell us that they're here to save us, but something about their demeanor seems odd. They look at us with an air of condescension. They don't seem to want to interact with any of the dwellers save the overseer. He hasn't had a moment of peace since they barged in and started barking orders. He led a few of them to his office. I can still hear them yelling down the hall. They began making a sweep of the vault. They were looking around for quite a while. Soon after that, they tried to eat us out of house and home, before Newton's apprentice told them to back off and eat their own food. I agree with her. The moment they showed up, they acted like they owned the place. Their timing is odd, in my opinion. What would cause them to want to show themselves now? We have nothing to offer them. Our resources are even lower than they were before our expedition group left. Somehow Dr. Troy has started running low on drugs, and if we keep having to feed them, we're going to starve ourselves. We've never had guests, and I don't know anything about what's customary, but I'm pretty sure this isn't how you act when you visit your neighbors. I also can't help but feel bad for Gregor. We may not have been the nicest to him when he first arrived, but he doesn't deserve the treatment that he's getting from these Enclave goons. When they asked us about him and we explained the situation, they started to treat him even worse than they were treating the rest of us, going out of their way to physically abuse him and insult him, even going so far as to call him a walking corpse. He's definitely not the most handsome guy anymore. He wasn't even that cute when he first arrived. But he still deserves to be treated the same as the rest of us. Not even security was this aggressive when they were processing him. He doesn't seem to bruise the same as us, so it's hard to tell how much of a beating he received behind closed doors. I even heard one of the Enclave officers telling Dr. Troy to stop treating that ghoul. It's starting to make me wonder more about what the above-ground world is like. Hopefully the people who left are safe.
Overseer's log, June 2nd, 2296. When I brought them to my office, they closed the door behind me and began to berate me with questions. If the vault dwellers thought I was a pain in the ass, they're going to have their hands full dealing with the government. They're exactly what I was led to believe by my family. They always prayed the government would never come to our hole in the ground. They made it seem like it would be the end of the world if we ever showed up on their radar. They never explained why. I doubt they knew why themselves. They were right, though. I would give anything to not open that door and keep them out there, away from us. Who knows why they've actually come here? I let myself think for a moment that maybe they could be here to help us. I know they're soon going to show me how much of a mistake it was to think that. I can hear them going around from dorm to dorm, forcing the doors open as if the idea of privacy was unfamiliar to them. Meanwhile, I was forced to answer the question my superiors had for me. They were nothing like what I imagined Vault Tech would be like. I wish it had been them who had made their way here. Hopefully I can get a message out to them and inform them of the situation. Maybe they can bring the sergeant and his men to heel. Just like last time, I've saved the transcript of what was said for the purposes of dissemination later on. There must be a clue of where they came from, or even what they want from us. How many dwellers did you allow to leave during the mass exodus, Overseer? I lost 16 vault dwellers in the revolt that happened recently. I was forced to let them go. Believe me, I tried everything possible to make them stay. Do you have any idea of where they were going? And do you know what they plan to do when they get to where they are going? Greenland is their destination, although I don't know if they're still alive. It's been quite a while. I don't know what they planned to do if they got there. I can only assume they wanted to start a settlement of some type, or maybe they would try to make their way to Europe. Where's the Pip-Boy that was with the man named Gregor? Unfortunately, the Pip-Boy was destroyed, along with all of its documents. It may be possible that they got their hands on some of the information that was stored on the device. Although once I discovered that my subordinates were using it to plan their escape, I made the decision to have it destroyed. How many people are left in the vault? 132. Have you had any communication with anyone other than the U.S. government? Yes. I receive frequent communication from Vault-Tec. You are the first representatives of the government we've been in contact with since 2083. Have you had contact with extraterrestrial life forms? No? Aliens don't exist. Unless you're here to tell me something different. How are your oil reserves and where is your central pipe junction? I gave them an updated map and access to the terminal connected to the oil pipeline network. Tell us everything about the appearance of the creature that has been terrorizing your people. I described the Ami Cook and everything we've surmised. Although it was hard to determine whether or not the things I had experienced were just the stress-induced hallucinations of an old man, I told them the things that were empirically provable, choosing to omit most of the more messed up things I had attributed to it. How far are you from reaching the oil reserve you're searching for? I'm not exactly sure. It could take quite a bit. You've certainly made it harder for us to reach our goal. Not that I'm complaining. You blew that thing to hell. I've been pushing my people to their limit for a few months now. I'm not sure how much harder they could work. Do you recognize the sovereignty of the United States? Yes. Will you abdicate leadership in the event that this vault is subsumed into the Enclave? If I must. I tried to ask them some questions of my own, but got nothing much for my effort. It would have been foolish of me to hide the amount of oil we have left. They would have found out one way or another. What do they intend to do with it? There's no way they can transport it in a few vertibots. I asked if they would stay to protect us while we dug up the oil. All I received was a grunt from the large man in power armor. The sergeant was still accessing the terminal in my office and studying the maps. He also took a look into the messages that I was sending Vault-Tec.
Dean McBride's log, June 2nd, 2296. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Maybe it was the added effect of the blast charges that we left back in the cave when we were running for our lives. But the explosion of the tactical nuke launched by the Enclave's Fat Man was a sight to behold. Were they not worried the entirety of the vault would collapse around them? That would be one hell of a Samson option. The sound was deafening. Everything shook. Layers of dust were discovered that had been undisturbed for centuries. The roar of the rocks as they tumbled and sunk into the underwater lake could be heard by everyone whose ears weren't already bleeding. No one ventured to take a look. Most were too shook to see what happened inside the crevasse. In the time the operation took place, we also saw men in power armor standing in front of the entrance to the excavation site. A few even stood outside the overseer's office and the vault door for some reason. It's hard to tell who's in charge around here. When everything was done, we thought there'd be a celebration to announce our victory. But no. The moment we were done, the Enclave began to bark orders at everyone, not just the Overseer, telling them to get back to work. Unlike the Overseer, there was no veneer of kindness to their modulated voice. The drill had to be shifted so that we could alter its trajectory. We tried to tell them that our main purpose for excavating this area was mineral extraction and expansion, which in light of everything that happened, would be postponed. They wouldn't listen. Instead, we were told to drag the drill around and reach the oil that was adjacent to the caves. It started to dawn on me then what was really going on. I'm not going to write it here just in case they decide to go through our computers next. If there's one thing I know, the government loves to be in your business. All I know for sure is the Overseer is definitely in cahoots with them, and Marie wasn't as crazy as we thought she was. I doubt even she would have predicted this, though. They could see that the people weren't physically tired, but they were getting weary of hearing the same rhetoric from both their Overseer and the Enclave. Work harder, take less breaks. If there's a 60% chance of injury, then it's safety approved by yours truly and the Enclave. At one point, we tried to appeal to the Overseer and see if he would try to convince the Enclave to let us use some of their technology to make the drilling go faster. He said that they refused the request and that we should be happy we could work safely under their protection. What are they trying to protect us from? Didn't they kill that thing? No one noticed immediately that one of them had failed to return from scavenging what remained of Ambler. It wasn't until later on when they did a roll call that they found Rebecca was nowhere to be found. Her things were still in the sled, but she had vanished. The group redoubled their search. Nothing was recovered. It was as if she never existed. This wasn't the first time they'd lost a friend without any clue of where they might have been. The fact that it was their doctor meant their odds of survival would drop drastically. This was the first time they returned, however. In the middle of the night she came stumbling out of an alleyway, falling over as if she were drunk. Her groans were the first thing that led her to being found by the group. She had clearly been working her way back there. However, she had trouble contending with the snow and ice in her condition. They refused to stay any longer in this place. What happened to Rebecca was an ill omen. Amka spoke out, trying to calm the dwellers' paranoia. This has happened to some of our people. On occasion we find them before they can make it back to town. They're always delirious, lost in a deep trance. They're conscious and able to accept instruction, but they're unable to think for themselves, or do anything without direct instruction. Sometimes we see lights near their direction. There never seems to be anything wrong with them upon further inspection. Our people have a story about travelers from beyond the stars, taking people for whatever reason. Whether it's aliens or something else is anyone's guess. They carried Rebecca back to the group who'd set up camp near the Kubak River Lodge. She had no idea of where she'd been for the past few hours. There were no signs of struggle or a fight. She looked perfectly healthy, flushed too, as if she'd been somewhere warm recently. Whatever had happened to her had removed her radiation sickness. A more organized watch was set up for the night. Everyone stayed inside the largest room of the lodge. Ancient mattresses were laid out for everyone to rest on, and a few were placed against the door to act as a barricade in case of assault. In the morning, most people started to think that Rebecca had hit her head, then wandered back dazed, probably after being unconscious for so long inside of a building. It wasn't missed by Anders that she had no bump on her head. She also had no frostbite anywhere, especially in exposed places that would have been resting on icy concrete. She did, however, have a puncture mark on her neck. "Rebecca, why don't you hang back with me? My agoraphobia has been acting up. I could use a therapy session, whenever you're feeling up to it." She tied her bag to Anders' sled. "Sure, we can do that. Don't go walking too fast, though. I'm not feeling 100% yet." "No problem, Doc. We'll take our time. It's probably for the best. I don't want anybody listening when we discussed why you have a needle mark in your neck. Can you tell me what you were injected with? Med-X, maybe? As a doctor, I'm sure you're well versed with how drugs feel in the body. Talk to me, Rebecca. Did something happen to you? Something that you're hiding from the others? I'll keep it a secret."
Rebecca shook her head, keeping her voice low as the group left the city. The snow and wind cut the sound of their conversation even further. I really don't remember anything about what happened. My last memory before I woke up by the community center and stumbled my way to you guys was being outside. I was thinking about entering a house I'd come across. I thought they might have some coats or food. I walked up the stairs and stood on the porch. Then the memory stops. It's strange, though. Now that that horrible brain fog is gone, I actually feel better than ever. I'm less sore, like I somehow got a full night of good sleep in those few hours. Anders furrowed his brow, trying to parcel out some hidden meaning. There's not much we can guess from that. That's a shame. But we're leaving now, probably for the best. Whatever took you wasn't keen on being discovered. We can't ignore the real possibility it was a warning to leave now before they take the rest of us. Rebecca started turning the subject back to something she did know. How's your agoraphobia doing? We've been above ground for a while now. You haven't said much about it until now. Anders shrugged. It's been fine. When it does get bad, I try to imagine that I'm a kid walking into the vault's agriculture sector for the first time. It seemed too big when I saw it for the first time as a kid, but I wasn't scared then. It seemed kind of magical. So I try to remember that feeling. Sometimes it works. You just come to me if you need any help with it. That's part of why I'm here, and you're here to make sure we stay safe.
Luke's Expedition Journal. I never thought I would say this about a place in Alaska, but it's so warm and calm. I would stay here forever if I could. The amount of non-mutated animals that live in this region is fascinating. It's like a tiny Garden of Eden within this narrow valley that extends as far as the eye can see. I know in my gut that nothing here is truly safe. Even if it looks warm and inviting, there's probably some sort of horror waiting to show itself when the lights go out. We haven't seen many predators living in this region. Preston says that's probably why there's so many small animals living in the area. I want to ask Amka why her people don't settle here. I know there must be a good reason, and I'm afraid of what it is. I'm sure she'll tell us if there's something we should be wary of. This time I pray that everyone listens to what she says. I don't know if I could stand burying another one of my friends, even in this beautiful place.
Vault Tech Mail. From Enclave Communications, Encrypted Channel. To Modus Supervisory Network. Subject, Experiment Update. Current Overseer has deviated far from primary directive. Initiative has been compromised. Chattel have been elevated beyond their position, resulting in discrepancies. Current objective, obtain supply of oil for diversion to home base. Contain any mutant threats within the vault. Procedures enacted, subversion of the Overseer's authority, reinstitution of bondage among the slave class, efficiency derived from force. Extreme actions may be taken if progress is unattainable. Potential threat. We discovered Delta 688's whereabouts after the destruction of the lab. It is unclear at this time how long it has been here. Inform Dr. Sage of the development. He'll be pleased to know one of his pets is alive.
William Longfoot's log. June 4th, 2296. They told us we would be safe, but I didn't believe them, and I was right. Not even a day later and the voice is back. It wasn't the same as before. It was quieter, calmer. It wasn't bothering me, except at moments when I was taking a break during the drilling. It says nothing but the same word over and over. Dig, 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 dig. I've tried to bring this up with the Overseer, but he won't acknowledge it. He doesn't want to deal with the reality that a simple tactical nuke wasn't able to destroy the Amakuk. Mark my words, it won't be long before this cycle happens again. And just you wait, it'll be twice as bad. I can tell that these men don't play around. The Overseer is a kitten compared to them. Things could get bloody before the end. Peter Charger's log. June 6th, 2296. Even the government isn't immune to the Amakuk. The ones who aren't wearing power armor have been muttering to themselves just like we do. They're getting more demanding, losing a bit of their facade. Nothing we do is quite enough in their eyes. Everything we touch is tainted. And even though I can't see their faces, I know the ones in the power armor are leering at us. They refuse to sit with us during meal times. They won't even drink the same water as us. What, do they think we don't filter our water? Any questions we ask are mostly met with evasive answers, or nothing at all if you're asking one of the tin cans. There are still some people that think this is necessary in order to be saved by the government. It's a shame. You can tell which ones truly paid attention in class. All I want to do is survive for now. I can only imagine what kind of grueling labor they have planned for us. At least when they get what they want, they'll leave us be. Maybe we can get back to some semblance of our former lives. Provided the Amakuk doesn't kill us before then. I know I've said a lot about those men in the power armor. I hope they're able to kill the Amakuk. They seem to want us to think that their first attempt was successful. But any fool who's been paying attention since it started whispering in our ears knows it's back, and it probably wants revenge for destroying its home. I worry for my family. Richard Gannon's log, June 6th, 2296. It's been a few days since these guys came to save us. They're starting to crack under the pressure too. I'm glad it's not just us. That proves there's something more going on around here. I wonder if they know more than they're letting on about. They don't seem to be worried. Even the ones who are clearly having moments of paranoia. They're acting like they're just having small panic attacks from being underground for so long. I'm not sure, but that seems like something they've been told to say. Something rehearsed beforehand. None of these people are getting headaches or stomach aches. It's all just anxiety. One of the Enclave members disappeared today. They've imprisoned those who aren't working inside of their rooms. They're having a meeting. There was a ton of yelling, but none of it was audible. They don't seem to think it's any of us, or I think they would have started shooting. They don't seem like the type of people to ask you politely why you killed one of their pals. In fact, they seem surprised that it even happened. To be honest, I don't think they managed to kill that thing when they filled in the hole. I think it dove deeper. Or maybe it found another way out. Imagine if it could swim through water and cut through the ground with those giant arm-like mandibles. Albert Donner's Terminal, June 7th, 2296. Dig the tunnel, clear the rubble, water the drill. That's all the voice wants from me. I don't even want to think what would happen if the Amakuk countermanded the demands of the power-armored people. We'd have a riot. The Enclave is already getting more demanding with us. They keep our families locked away so we can't see them. They seem desperate to get this finished. We are too. The sooner we finish this, the sooner they'll leave. After all, they're only here to protect us from the creature that's hunting us. At least if you believe what Brooke says. Apparently they've been hunting this creature, which they named D688. Once they catch the creature, they say that they'll be leaving. The Amakuk says it will leave us alone after we find the oil, as if it has a purpose for its discovery. No one has gotten any sleep lately. It's difficult to sleep when you're exhausted and scared for your life at the same time. These guys in the power armor have to take it off sometime. I wonder if that's the only time they hear it, in the dead of night when they're trying to sleep. I want it whispering to them, driving them mad. It's frustrating how they act like nothing's wrong while we're being driven insane with existential dread.
The group came across a river as they got nearer to the gates of the Arctic, its snake-like form stretching on for miles. On either side were hills that created a natural cover, blocking the wind and allowing for a small valley full of flora and wildlife. The wind carried the sounds of birds and smaller animals. They followed the river's winding path for a week, enjoying the temperate weather, the lack of snow, and the silence. The only thing breaking the stillness was the occasional rabbit or fox. Marie noted that this place didn't seem to suffer extreme radiation damage. "Do your people know about this place, Amka?" Her eyes betrayed her suspicion. "Yes, it's a place as beautiful as it is deceptive. There are things here that can't survive beyond the valley. Don't take them as weak for being unable to handle the cold. They're just as deadly, if not more so, than what you've seen so far." The whistles returned that night, their ominous melodies cutting through the rustling of the wind across the treetops. Before the sun rose, silence descended on the valley. Shortly after, there was a loud roar from downstream, a guttural groan that crescendoed into a rumble that shook the ground they stood on. The dwellers did not stay in the valley for longer than they needed to after that, marching fast to escape the deceptively peaceful place. A few of the dwellers lamented as they traveled further from the valley, and the wind and cold began to set back into their bones. They had no choice, though. The path south beckoned them. Even though they re-entered the unforgiving wasteland, they hoped warmer places like these would become more commonplace. They accepted that no matter where they went, there would be danger. Even before, Amka had warned them about her experience. Warmer weather means more danger. When animals aren't worried about the cold, they begin to worry more about their stomachs. They tend to get bigger, too. Wait until summer, then you'll see for yourselves. Fort Yukon was their next stop. It was hard to tell where exactly the railways went. The tracks in this area were ancient and decayed. Large sections were missing or covered by snow and rocks. As the day went on, they began to see a building on the horizon. The fort stood out on the top of a hill overlooking a small valley. A single railway led up to the fort, worn tracks that hadn't been used in a long time, judging by the buildup of rust and ice. A transit center lay just outside the perimeter of the fort, empty and cold, but still powered. The terminals flickered and blinked in and out, while Marie navigated through the terminaling process, trying to find the password. Ugh, 7 out of 10, almost, but not quite. Troglodyte, that's got it. Most of the information was mundane. Received deliveries from before the war, notes from employees calling each other communists. Some of the information showed where the railways went, as well as where the nearest rail yards were. In the middle of Marie deciphering the information, a message appeared on the screen. I've watched you since you left the vault. Worry not, and don't bother replying to this. The warm vault you've experienced has no doubt left you ill-prepared for the dangers of the wastes. I am a friend. Please, trust in humanity. I mean you no harm. I've sent you a set of coordinates to follow. We have supplies here, food, water, medicine. The old world never truly died out. I don't know what you are looking for. However, I'm sure we can offer our assistance with your journey. Marie tried to figure out where the message came from, but wasn't able to track it to a specific location. It was unlike the Poseidonet systems. There was no way to locate a point of origin. Amka thought that it must have come from the Chinese remnants. If we keep following the railways, we'll eventually come into contact with them. Marie explained her suspicions. These coordinates mentioned in the message point to a place west of Fairbanks, in Denali Park, a natural structure called Mount McKinley. Do your Chinese friends live that far down? That's an extra 100 or so miles than we originally thought. Amka frowned. No, I know they live in and around Fairbanks. They call it something a little bit different. It's still the same place, though. Maybe they've expanded. They could have another settlement nearby as well. They're very advanced compared to my people. They like their computers. They like to stay in one place, too. They don't defend themselves by hiding like we do.
Luke's Expedition Journal. I remember reading about Fort Yukon when I was a kid. I know you weren't into history like I was. If you saw it, though, you'd agree. This place is real history. Somewhere around 444 years old. It's not made of wood anymore. If I didn't know better, I would say someone constructed a vault above ground. This place has to be the warmest region we've come across. Why couldn't our ancestors have been from this place? It's defensible. I never want to leave. We're going soon, though. This message we received? We may have found more people. Something seems a bit off. We're still trying to figure out what we want to do. Most of us are in favor of keeping on the path we've been heading in, hoping to find the Chinese. Who knows what we would run into if we deviate from our path? I know exactly what you would do in this situation. I'm keeping my mouth shut. Alex Simone's log. June 8th, 2296. We finally made it around the cave-in, and we're back on our original trajectory. It's not a moment too soon. Only a few people are whispering it right now, but both the Enclave and the Vault Dwellers have seen it. There's still something stalking us. How we can get through the dirt and water is beyond me, but anything that can take a blast like that and still be alive isn't something I want to get up close and personal with. It didn't happen while I was working, but the group that came in had faces whiter than snow. They wouldn't say much about what happened, but we could hear the laughter coming from the Amakuk. We all knew what it was before anyone said anything. It's taken another person, hasn't it? Those who saw it continued walking down the hall sullenly, refusing to answer any questions. I don't think they wanted to tell us what was in store when our shift was up. I don't want to go down there anymore. I don't care if we freeze. I don't care if we find oil. The Overseer doesn't turn the heat up anymore. He says it's to motivate us. But I've noticed him and the Enclave members who aren't wearing power armor are always holed up in his office. He must have a secret heater in there or something. I'm not surprised. The man has been full of secrets since the get-go. If we're going to find anything out about what's going on, we'll have to be sneaky. None of us can stand up to those power-armored men.
Vault Tech Mail. From Modus Supervisory Network to Enclave Communications Encrypted Channel. Subject: Delta 688 update. Request denied. Fulfill primary mission parameters. Acquire human subjects for remittance. Forward oil reserves to home base. Return to headquarters for debrief. In that order. Dismissed.
Peter Chargers log. June 10th, 2296. I swear, if these guys had brought whips with them, they'd be using them. One was yelling so loud, I was sure that his vocal cords were going to snap. He went by the name of Arch Jr. His voice boomed like the mini-nuke.
If you maggots were in the United States Army, I would have had you court-martialed for laziness, pea-brained piles of crap before I do something to put the fear of God into you. America didn't give you this chance of life just so you could do nothing with it. Serve your country above ground or below, or you'll be buried in this vault. You do realize we're protecting you from that monster, right? Good American men lost their lives defending you from that thing.
I'm not sure where this guy comes from, or if this passes for motivation back home. But that stuff doesn't work down here. Our people aren't hard. They aren't designed for the labor they're making us do. Soon we'll be there, though. Only 2 more days of intense digging to go. I'm not sure if everyone's going to make it through that, though. They're pretty exhausted. And even though we're fairly distanced from the actual digging most of the time, there are those who have developed some form of black lung. Even the younger ones haven't been spared. Theirs isn't as bad due to their inability to do the harder jobs. Arch Jr.'s voice went down several octaves after he was done yelling at us. He was talking to himself now, more than he was to the dwellers. It wasn't natural. We shot that thing square on. It should have died right then and there. It killed Jerome and Bucky. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for the oil and manpower.
We hope you enjoyed our story. Thank you again for joining us. If you'd like to hear more about why war never changes, please subscribe to get regular updates on the adventures of the dwellers from Vault 710. If you're excited about the expanding Fallout universe, please feel free to tell your friends and spread the word. If you'd like to contribute, we invite you to join our Patreon. Subscribers will get access to episodes 1 week early. Our hope is that these stories help fill the void of being unable to play Fallout 5.